presenters today. The first is Mike Brennan, our President and Chief Services Officer at Leapgen.
Thanks so much, Jess, and thanks everyone for joining. Particular thanks to those who have hung in there with the Zoom technical difficulties, but really excited, like Jess, to be here to talk about some topics that are near and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about making continual improvements to the employee experience, and we're also going to be talking about getting the most value out of your cloud platforms. So as many of you know, employee experience platforms are emerging as a kind of an interface that allows workers to essentially get what we like to call a more frictionless experience. They can avoid logging into numerous backend systems, and instead they get a single personalized view access into a wide range of information, resources, services, and not just HR services. So this type of platform in particular, like a lot of HR platforms that touch the entire workforce or large swaths of it, this is not the type of thing that you can just turn on and walk away. So things don't end at go live, that's where they begin. So we'll be talking today about continually improving, evolving the platform through incremental fixes and enhancements, as well as projects when they're warranted. So a few of the other things that we'll be talking about also include really acting more like product managers and operating more like a marketing function. So a lot of the concepts that you'll hear from Greg and myself today will really hone in on following marketing's lead. So with that, Greg's name's been mentioned a couple times. I'm really happy to be joined by Greg from the Anti today. Like me, he's an HR tech veteran. He's got experience in several ecosystems, including Kronos, Ceridian, Workday, prior to his arriving at the Anti, where he heads up the HR service delivery practice. So Greg, welcome. Looking forward to presenting with you. Would you mind just sharing a little bit more detail about yourself and the Anti?
Yeah, sure, Mike. Thanks for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here on the webinar with everyone today. Like Mike said, I'm the Vice President of Consulting at the Anti for our HR service delivery ServiceNow practice. I joined the Anti about a year ago, and if you'd like to, Mike, can you advance the slide and I'll do a quick overview of what the Anti does and some of our implementation capabilities. So like I said, the Anti was founded about 2 years ago. We're a ServiceNow premier partner focusing strictly on the HR service delivery platform. And primarily we provide 3 different services to our clients and today in the market. So one being ServiceNow implementation. So think of those as greenfield opportunities to implement ServiceNow HR service delivery for customers that don't have it. We also do a lot of work with phase 2 type customers who have HR service delivery, but are looking to expand the platform. A relatively new service that we started to offer out to the market space is what we brand as continuous development. So think of these things as services that we provide on a monthly subscription service to get access to our resources to do continuous improvement or continuous development on the ServiceNow platform. And then last but not least, we provide ServiceNow technical and product training for customers on behalf of both ServiceNow, as well as we host some private classes for our customers. So if I look at some of the specific consulting skills and capabilities that we bring to the market, we talk about technical architecture, because as you guys know, ServiceNow is not just a product, but it's also a platform. So we offer technical architecture services to talk about how do all these different products work together on the platform to make sure that we're optimizing all the benefits of the actual platform. Two, kind of part and parcel with the technical architecture, we also provide HR business architecture. So those are things like what products within the HR service delivery product line do we implement, and then help do some process normalization across distinct business processes that customers are trying to improve or optimize. We also offer some service around platform governance. So for people that are doing a lot of integration work or also ITSM customers or any one of the other ServiceNow products, we can provide some advisory services around how to best manage the overall ServiceNow platform. Everything in the middle of that box between technical development, configuration, integration development, data conversion, those are very specific to HR service delivery on the ServiceNow platform. And of course, part of these projects, we've done several of these projects and we've developed some really good best practices around how to manage the efforts and how to manage from beginning to end to make sure that customers are realizing the value of the solutions. The overall goal, or what our aim as a company, is to really help our customers enhance the worker experience and to deliver some optimized business process using both HR service delivery and ITSM. So Mike, if you want to advance the slide, I do want to continue around talking about what employee experience is and how it relates to the ServiceNow platform and some of the other topics that we're going to talk about today. So I think most on the webinar today would agree that the employee experience isn't a new concept, but what I think most people will agree on, that ServiceNow has brought some new products to bear here in the last 3 to 4 years to really help improve both the employee experience and improve HR operations. So for many of us who are veterans of this space, having been in the ecosystem for 20 plus years, most of my project work in my career has been focused on systems of record like core HR or payroll or even applicant tracking systems. And those things are still necessary today, and we still need to be concerned about making sure that those tools and processes are optimized the right way. But what ServiceNow has brought to the market here as of late is really what we would call this workforce experience layer. And so the aim and the purpose of that workforce experience layer is very different than those transactional systems that you see listed below in the bottom right-hand corner. Really, the purpose of this experience layer is to create more engagement with your employee workforce and to drive employee satisfaction amongst the workforce. So ServiceNow accomplishes these things by way of their products like a knowledge base, where you can surface a lot of questions about FAQs and how do you get work done around the organization, or a case management product where if an employee has a service request or something that they need help with, they can log a case and get assistance from one of the HR service delivery call center agents and team. But most importantly, and the thing that I'm most excited about, is their employee portal. ServiceNow refers to this as the Employee Service Center. So think of this as the place where all the employees are going to be driven to go accomplish things like finding knowledge base articles, logging cases, initiating transactions, and interacting with that HR operations center. And you might say, well, hey, portal's not a new concept, but what is new is portal has been integrated as with the workflow engine to allow you to manage and optimize those processes better and have better engagement with your employees. So Mike, I'm not sure if you had anything else that you wanted to add or pile on to that introduction of the concept, or what we're going to be focused on here for the rest of the time today.
Yeah, just a couple of things, Greg. One is that when it comes to HR systems, and appreciate that overview of the landscape, when you think of the employee experience and the employee environment, the better way to put it, there's the physical environment, where we go to work, whether it's in a home office, on a shop floor, at a corporate office, the cultural environment, and typically that's where an organization starts. What do we want this organization to feel like viscerally? What connection do we want folks to have to the organization's mission and one another? And then, of course, there's the digital environment, and this experience layer is becoming a much bigger part of the digital experience in our client base, and it certainly has an impact. It can be used to amplify, convey that cultural environment as well, including getting easier access, more personalized access to resources, information that HR may house, as well as other corporate support functions. So that's enough of us speaking for now. I wanted to do a quick level set, if it's okay with you. Greg, we had a few polling questions that we've got on deck here. We won't use all of them, but one that I did want to ask folks is whether or not you're currently planning to limit employees' exposure to systems of record, some of which, depending on when you implemented, depending on whether you're behind the firewall or not, depending on how you configured, may not be all that user-friendly. And some of our customers, a lot of them actually, we work with them on an ongoing basis now to determine what should be rendered directly to employees, managers, essentially non-power users via an experience layer, masking transactions in some cases, versus what they should expose them to in the systems of record themselves. So we'd love to just get a sense from all of you if you're currently planning to limit your employees' exposure to systems of record in favor of an EXP like ServiceNow or maybe other EXP elements, whether they're chatbots that you use, other software that you use to that your workforce uses on a massive basis. They're in there doing work anywhere, collaborative software, and such. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and it looks like Greg, we've got an even split with yes and then no and not sure. So at least half of you are either currently working in an EXP or planning to work with your EXP to limit the exposure to those systems of record, which, if you think about where HR has come from, HR technology specifically, a lot of you maybe work with organizations that have an HR system that was essentially a payroll system with HR functionality attached to it. And the most important thing was getting live and making sure people get paid correctly and on time, but hadn't necessarily thought about what the experience would be beyond that. That's one extreme. Most customers we work with aren't necessarily at that extreme, but some are. Some findings. Any takeaways from you, Greg, on this with half they plan on making the shift?
Yeah, no, just no real takeaways specifically from the poll, but I do want to share just from our recent experience, we've had a lot of dialogue with customers about some confusion around what types of transactions to put within ServiceNow proper versus one of these other systems that we're calling HR systems of record, where I like to say a system of record like a Workday or an ADP stops is really around compliance, right? So like you have to get payroll right, you have to do things like benefit enrollment right, you have to do all these back office HR functions properly, and those tools are really well suited to support HR and getting transactions right. And really, like when you start to think about what you're going to expose in a tool like ServiceNow or any other employee experience layer, is really talking about things that are directly affecting employees and how to drive engagement, usability, and workflows. And so while those things could include transactional things that HR is typically focused on, like onboarding transactions or benefit enrollments or talent management processes, the employee experience layer has really made sure that the employees have a good interaction and good experience while HR is providing their services to them.
Yeah, similar principle that we use. A question came in, by the way, this question from Alexandra. Limit, in quotes, is an interesting approach in terms of the question wording. She asked, would you recommend limiting exposure and cutting off access to a core HR system or just providing dual entry options? I would opt for either the latter of providing dual entry options, or in a lot of cases, as Greg, you just alluded to, don't recreate the transactional functionality inside the experience layer unless the experience inside the transactional system just has a lot of unnecessary friction associated with it, whether that's the way things look on screen, whether the way they render via mobile, the number of steps, if there's some lack of personalization that it can provide. But really the experience layer does provide a means to orchestrate transactions in the core HR system and others, providing, as you said, Greg, the interactions for people to make more informed transactions. So if I'm enrolling in benefits, having a good understanding of what I'm eligible to receive based on maybe some elements of my worker profile, gender, location, level, grade, and so forth. Really, that's where the strengths of the experience layer lie. The transactional systems are there for a reason. They were purpose-built to manage those transactions. So unless there are good reasons to completely mask the transactional system, we'd recommend emphasizing the interaction, that experience in the experience layer. It's not a misnomer. And providing easy access through the experience layer in the flow of work to those systems of record. Cool, great question. Please keep them coming in. In terms of the mindset shift I wanted to refer to, we talk a lot about mindset at Leapgen. Our equation for success for anything digital starts with mindset. And in terms of looking at an experience layer, we urge customers that we work with, particularly those who have had a history of going live and calling it a day. They spend months, and it should be a joyous occasion. A go live, it's a significant milestone, but it is just the beginning. And as one of my dear friends and colleagues likes to say, it's kind of like having a baby when you go live with one of these systems. You've spent the months preparing, getting ready for go live, but once it goes live, that's when the experiences start. That's when the data begins to be collected. You really need an entirely different set of skills. And one of the areas that we find ourselves working with our customers a lot as we transition from strategy into execution is on what resources are needed in the world of cloud technology to support these next gen employee experiences. So treating your system like a painting that you bring home and hang on a wall and never do anything with other than maybe dust it off every once in a while. Think of it more as a child, or if a better suited analogy for you, a pet that needs care and feeding in order to evolve over time. When you go live, you do want to showcase the value and measures and resources in place to really improve that experience over time. So really think long term with respect to what that go live milestone truly means, a beginning, not an end. So one of the other models in specific to experience when trying to convey what we mean by this to customers, whether it's working with them on their phase one implementation or post go live on some of the enhancements that didn't make the cut, if you will, for phase one, is that service delivery itself, from an HR perspective, really from a corporate perspective, is really turning itself inside out. So it was once focused internally on consolidation, outsourcing, maybe some cost savings, whereas today service delivery models are becoming more centered on the workforce experience. So what we recommend is starting with experience, using that to define what your processes and technology should look like, and ultimately what capabilities you need in terms of the organization, what roles and responsibilities should be held, what skills are needed to deliver. And in the case of HR, this often means moving culturally now. I mentioned the three environments earlier, physical, cultural, and digital, moving from a high-touch human to a high-touch digital approach. So not necessarily relying on shoulder tapping, phone calls, one-off emails for what are fairly rudimentary requests that can be delivered through direct access or more commonly known as self-service. So what does that really mean? When we talk about experience, it really means right product, right service, right information to the right person at the right time through the right channel. So it's all about creating this frictionless experience. And this is the definition of friction is going to change over time. It's going to change based on differences or changes in what the workforce expects, maybe new channels that they now use, that you move from one collaborative platform to another. It might also be more episodic. You've got open enrollment, as Greg mentioned, here in the US that rolls around. What does that mean in terms of the outreach, in terms of providing people with updates to benefits programs to let them know what they've taken advantage of in the past in order for them to make informed decisions this year. So really, in terms of thinking about this cycle of, we go live and then hope for the best, really urge everyone to break that mindset and think of things in terms of continual ongoing improvement because it is absolutely going to inform your platform governance, which Greg, I know you're going to cover next. So I'll turn things over to you to discuss HR program governance specifically in the ServiceNow platform.
Yeah, so what we got up on the screen is what you would see. Most organizations provide some form of governance around a product like ServiceNow, where you've got a lot of different parts of the organization involved in overseeing, getting to decide what happens, when it happens, and ultimately trying to improve some business results around it. So if you look at kind of those left-hand boxes there, those are the governing bodies that are always directly affected an HR service delivery like project or the actual product once you're in business as usual or steady state. So if you look at that top left-hand corner and we talk about HR program governance, that's usually defined by the HR leadership team. And the main purpose around this is to provide strategy and to stack up project priorities that are going to meet specific business case and outcomes that the business is looking to achieve. The program governance layer typically would also manage your overall change management efforts. So if you're making a transition from a legacy tool to a new tool, there's going to be some sort of change management involved, whether it's reskilling employees to use a new system, whether it's marketing and communications or training events. Think of all those people that help make all the technology come to life and that the organization is aware that this change is about to occur. With specific respect to ServiceNow, we'll also have to have a platform governance team or layer. It's usually defined by a production support or business as usual kind of team. And the primary responsibility for that group is committing to an overall IT strategy. So you could have a strategy that says on-premise, or you could say, hey, I've got an IT strategy that says I want to bring applications like this that HR uses into the cloud, like ServiceNow. They are also responsible for things like production change control. So when new features, new product goes into the environment, it affects the entire platform. So you want to have somebody controlling that about the timing and the what actually gets promoted into the platform. So one more to the right of that, if you look at instance management, those are the environments or the tenants out which you're actually using when you're running projects or doing business as usual activities. And so there's got to be some governing body that says, hey, we've got development tenants, we've got testing tenants, and we've got production tenants or sandbox tenants, or in the terms that ServiceNow uses, those would all be called instances. So you need to have some sort of rules and process and governing bodies to make sure that we're controlling those environments and what they're being used for. So more specifically about what Mike was talking about around product management, and it's a fairly new concept in terms of deploying products like these to the market, is we feel strongly that you have to have a product management function and a product governance body who really owns the product in the solution roadmap, and so that they can help make some decisions on things like which features and functions are we going to roll out to our users, or maybe there's a conflict in policy and like how do we really normalize around that, because we as a development team and a technology team, we really want the voice of the customer, in this case HR, and the voice of the employees to make sure that they're heard and we're providing a good experience for them. So those are the typical governing bodies. For smaller organizations, this might seem a little heavy and overwhelming. Certainly you can fit these for purpose based on the size of the organization or the complexity of the organization. In my opinion, this is a pretty robust governance model with the different types of roles and responsibilities. And we typically see this carved up this way in Fortune 500 type companies.
And Greg, you mentioned IT. What would you say about, I suppose it would be in platform governance, partnerships with other functions, whether it's facilities or finance, because a lot of the experiences you mentioned onboarding before as an example kind of cuts across different functions. So just wondering what you see at the platform governance level in terms of making sure that those needs are taken into account, because ultimately you do want to provide that seamless experience across all for the employees.
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting transition, right? As cloud-based applications have put the products inside of HR departments, and HR has tried to self-manage. ServiceNow, in particular, is a tool that really is platform, and it spans multiple departments. And you need to develop a good relationship and partnership with IT, because IT is going to own the platform, and then IT is going to provide platform services to the different functions and business units around the organization. So HR, for example, would be a customer of IT managing the platform, or like you said, facilities or finance or customer service management, all would be customers, and the IT plays that role as a central point of contact to make sure that the platform is healthy and stable, and that they're prioritizing all of the new requests and features and product appropriately for the business.
Got it. Yeah, and the question came in regarding the employee experience platform that I think applies here. It's from Bill. He says, so it sounds like the user experience can accommodate transactions through a unified UI, much like the initial concept of Deloitte's Connect Me, compensating for poor user experiences and many legacy applications. True. And I would say, I would broaden UI to channel. It's not just getting kind of seamless access and cutting out different user interfaces, because that implies that, at least in my mind, that you're looking at software, but you may actually be talking to it via your mobile phone. So, and that may have been the way you'd intended to phrase it, Bill, that, user experience, user interfaces, you called it this unified UI, kind of stretches beyond the, point and click in different software applications. But yeah, I mean, that's everything Greg just said, and is really in the spirit of providing that unified UI for different stakeholder groups in the organization, because that UI or that channel might differ for a field employee versus someone who's at corporate, a salesperson versus someone who's in a research lab, or someone who's in a very secure area working for the government 12 hours a day in a highly locked down environment, and doing most of their employee-related business when they're at home. So in terms of the governance aspect of this, really cross-functional partnership is key, because you don't want to be hitting the workforce with different initiatives, different user experiences from different functions. They should follow certain standards. So with that, we wanted to ask another polling question, and specifically, have you struck a healthy balance for those of you who've gone live, whether it's on ServiceNow or on other systems? Have you struck a healthy balance of keeping the lights on and delivering enhancements and new capabilities to keep up with the expectations of the workforce? So do you have that go begin mindset? So I'm just going to go ahead and launch the poll here. Really curious to see how these results come in. I'll leave it open for another 5 seconds or so. Greg, any bets on where the results are coming in?
I'm cheating though. I can actually see where they're starting to come in. But I would guess that the general mindset is, hey, I've got projects and funding to go run a project, and that the continuous development is pretty nominal for most organizations. I think that most people focus on things like maintenance and upgrades, as opposed to rolling out new features and functions for the long haul.
Yeah, it looks as though that the majority haven't yet struck that balance of that continual improvement, or as we stated here, delivering enhancements and new capabilities to keep up with the expectations of the workforce. And this is certainly not a general sample of people, that folks are on this line, because they've probably, if they don't have this mindset already, they're heading toward it based on things that they're reading and hearing from peers in their organizations or at other organizations. So definitely some work to do here. So with that in mind, Greg, would love your take on project work versus continual development.
Yeah, so kind of what we alluded to at the top of the call, Mike, where I think organizations really do need to start to delineate, hey, this is a project versus, hey, this is a continuous improvement type activity. I think some good rules of thumb that don't fit every single situation we've got here on the screen where we say things like, hey, you definitely have a project on your hands if you've got work effort that's large enough where you need a business case, a strategy, and some deliberate change management around it. If you hear people starting to talk about this as a phase one or a phase two type effort, you're usually talking about people that are implementing new products or multiple services in the case of ServiceNow, or looking to implement features that weren't previously used by an organization. And my general rule of thumb around project work is it's probably greater than 3 months. We like to try to contain ServiceNow-like projects to something less than 9, just to make sure that it's small enough to deliver in a rapid fashion where the business can start to see some value from it. On the other side of the equation, if we're talking about continuous development, they're more incremental changes to the platform where you're adding, smaller number of features or smaller numbers of workflows or services being added to a platform with capabilities that the organization is already familiar with. And I like to, bucket those as things that can be delivered to the organization in a time frame that's, less than 6 weeks, and they usually come in the form of a development sprint that lasts somewhere between 3 and 6. I just think it's important to discern between the two things of, hey, when do I have a project on my hand versus when can I just leverage a continuous development effort to go satisfy some of the business requirements?
Makes sense.
Yes, if you think about where we've been so far on the call, and you talk about, hey, we've got to have a product management mindset. We've got to discern between project work and development. And then if we really start to talk about what does a product manager do and what is the function that they provide, if you flip to the next slide, Mike, really like when people start to ask us like, well, what is this product management function doing in more detail, and what do they go action on a day-to-day basis? So I categorize a product manager, describe a product manager as somebody who owns a product roadmap. So they're going to decide which products and features are going to be delivered in certain times. And usually when we're talking about road mapping, we're talking about projects that are layered in over a 1 to 3 year kind of horizon. So a product manager would own that. Certainly they have stakeholders that get to have input into what the roadmap is, but a product manager would certainly know what's on the roadmap to be delivered in the next 1 to 3 years. They also are responsible for managing what we would refer to as an intake process. So the organization is going to have feedback about your current process. They're going to have ideas about what they want the platform to do and what enhancements that the product needs to have over the next year or so. So the product manager is listening to the market, listening to their customers, and processing that intake and synthesizing them into priorities for development work. So they come up with processes to say, hey, this is going to yield the most value for our organization. And then they help prioritize that work to make sure that it fits within the roadmap and to tee up the work for a development team. They typically would also be responsible for helping facilitate requirements collection to make sure that they're getting the right specs and that they're going to deliver on a product that's meaningful to the organization. And then last but not least, once it does eventually go into production, your product managers are really responsible for monitoring the usage of those products and looking around the analytics to see, hey, are we really providing the business value that we thought we were going to realize when we put this on the roadmap, when we prioritized it, when we built it out, to make sure that we're delivering some good value to the organization. So this isn't put in a line, and it's not put in a wheel where you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because as you guys know from your day jobs, all these types of things are happening every single week. And so those are kind of independent processes that are always happening, and it's pretty volatile about when they occur. It's not like you get to roadmap one day and then you prioritize it, get some more feedback. So these things can come at you from any direction at any point in time. So that's why it's also really important to have a good governance model with some pretty clear processes around who gets to say what's in the roadmap and how do we prioritize things and how do we take in new ideas.
Yeah, and we have gotten a few questions related to measurement along a number of different lines. One related to using information to improve the employee experience on an ongoing basis, one related to ROI, and one related to communicating continuous improvement to leadership. We'll actually get to each one of those when we delve into analytics and improvement a little bit more. But Greg, I know you wanted to spend a little time on road mapping specifically in the ServiceNow platform.
Yeah, so ServiceNow obviously has a ton of capabilities. We mentioned them earlier, where it's things like knowledge base, case management, services, and workflows. So what you're seeing on the screen here are probably some example workflows that might surprise you that ServiceNow could handle the use cases for. So it's things like candidate management that parlays into like an ATS. They have a specific product around onboarding that once you've got a candidate that's coming through the system, that they've got to-dos and checklists to stitch together a lot of the other HR transactional systems to make their onboarding experience more fluid and to optimize that experience as they're on their way in. So I won't read through all of them, but what I would like to do, Mike, is go to the next slide and show what an example roadmap would look like for customers that come to us and they say, well, hey, can you help us develop a strategy or roadmap for the next 12 months, 2 years about how we would roll out the products? And if we gave you a blank piece of paper, how would you do it? So all organizations are just a little bit different. So it's worth making the investment up front to develop a roadmap and have the deliberate discussion, because it's not a one size fits all. But if you gave me the opportunity to say, hey, which ServiceNow products go first versus second versus third, this picture that you're seeing on the screen is how I would recommend that you take upon the initiatives. So one, the foundational work around ServiceNow centers around the case and knowledge products. So you have to give the employees the ability to self-service. So that comes with knowledge. You're publishing policies, how-tos, FAQs in a knowledge base so that the employees can go to that product and get answers quickly and service in what HR operations would call a tier 0 kind of way. Behind that comes in cases or services management, where you're offering up different services to your employees, whether it's a tuition reimbursement process, or I'm going out on leave of absence and I need to submit that case to the HR Ops Center to satisfy that request and get some help to make sure that we're taking those leaves or getting tuition reimbursed the right way. So those, in my mind, are foundational. And like you see on the screen here, typically that's a project that's 16 to 20 weeks in duration. Some organizations can, in fact, go faster than that. Some organizations do need more time than that. But if you ask me what's normal, I would say it's somewhere between 4 and 5 months. We always recommend a healthy stabilization period immediately following your release 1, where you really don't want to embark on other project-related activities immediately following the first release. You really need to let some of the change management activities, the organizational learning kind of breathe before you go start on a new project. So we always like to budget somewhere between 3 weeks to 6 weeks of what we would call a stabilization period to make sure that the solution is taking, we've got good adoption, and that we've done a good job on the first release. Most of our customers then come to us and say, hey, we see a lot of incremental things because it is platform. You can do a lot of customizations and tailor it very uniquely to your employees to say these things are more incremental in nature, so they're not necessarily a project, but they're things that we want to improve on the solution. So in those cases, we recommend that customers stand up a production support team that's enabled to continuously develop and enhance the solutions. And then once you feel like you've got that good foundational layer, but behind a first release, behind the continuous development program, then you can start to go deeper into the ServiceNow product stack around things like onboarding and other lifecycle events.
Yeah, and Greg, we've just had some really insightful questions and comments. I do want to touch on the point about ROI that's come in, and I'm not big on building business cases that show, for every dollar in, you're going to get this many dollars out. It just typically doesn't work that way. with systems that have a lot of intangible benefits. That said, there are quantitative benefits that one can build a business case on when talking about an employee experience platform. So when we build business cases with organization, we use an acronym called ERIC. So male name, and the ERIC stands for experience. Really, experience enhancements focus largely on intangible, but there are employee and manager productivity metrics that can be driven out of experience. So if you're providing an environment where people aren't spending so much time looking for stuff, I'll just use that as a kind of a general statement. They're able to focus their time on more productive endeavors. So there's a productivity gain to be made there. Risk avoidance would be that second letter. So R stands for risk avoidance. That is, it could be acknowledgments that are happening, whether it's during an onboarding process or some other annual process that is facilitated through workflow from the employee experience platform. Inefficiencies that can be wrung out, really looking at cross-functional workflows. And then lastly, cost savings. And there was a point made here, a few really good points actually by Jill Buchanan saying that they communicated to their leadership as part of this transition to software as a service. They would be able to really transition into continuous improvement mode because they're taking advantage of innovation that the vendor provides. There's also a complement to that by outsourcing some of their IT. Typically, they are driving out some costs that really are internally focused on hardware and or software maintenance. So just by transitioning to the SaaS model alone, there's typically some case to be made for cost savings there, in addition to the productivity gains, time savings, and so forth. So business cases are multifaceted, but they also need to be complemented by something like this. So if you look at this roadmap, which can be used to tell a story, just the emotions this would invoke, say, versus this, these are two very different things. This one, just by production value, it's a simple drawing, but it does have an emotional appeal. And typically, whenever you are selling a business case to the C-suite, you're going to have some combination of left-brainers and right-brainers in the room. So in addition to having your numbers in order, I highly recommend folks look for stories, whether they're related to recruiting and onboarding, which a lot of senior level folks can relate to, or there might be some benefits related stories that folks can tell, maybe applying to a leave of absence. There's a strong emotional component to employee experience layers, because as I mentioned earlier, that's one of the three types of environments that, this one in particular, this digital environment, is really used to amplify, to reflect the culture of the organization. And I've sat in, after we've done some design work with customers and we're working with either, a software provider like ServiceNow itself or implementation experts like the Anti, just working through some of the proofs of concept, not even during the implementation, but during the business case development. This is what a leave of absence could look like. This is what global relocation could look like with this experience layer. Just as a complement to the ROI, the left brain stuff, is something that I strongly recommend. So, Greg, in terms of spending time, did you want to cover prioritization? Did you want to spend the remainder of our time on measurement before getting to key takeaways and any outstanding questions?
I think we should move to measurement, Mike.
Yeah. That's the way the Q&A is directing us. So in terms of measurement and specifically the analytics and improvements component of that product management model that Greg reviewed with us before, really using measurement to continuously improve is paramount. So Eric, experience, that first component of Eric, when we work with customers, we really think about this in terms of 6 sub-measures, if you will. So you've got sentiment, which would be feedback from specific service events. maybe employee engagement and pulse surveys, which really provide a window into how the workforce is feeling. You can yield some of those via an experience platform. There's tier 0 effectiveness. So Greg mentioned knowledge management earlier. So measuring knowledge article searches, the views, how they're rated, their efficacy, their usefulness to folks once they get access to them. There's process, so understanding which processes are initiated, where there might be bottlenecks, which ones are completed, and most importantly, which processes are abandoned will help you deliver more of a positive experience on an ongoing basis. There's case measures, so that's everything from case volume, as well as other metrics such as first contact resolution. You can marry that with your case satisfaction data, which can help you understand where you may have some experience challenges. You've got incidents. This is a slight variation on case, but it's where workers have a specific challenge or issue, and you want to get an understanding whether it's an employee performance issue or not able to get access to critical equipment or facilities. It's understanding how long it takes to resolve these incidents, and then conducting a root cause analysis to determine ways to reduce those incidents in the future. And then lastly, channels and devices to deliver great experiences. As we mentioned earlier, you need to meet the workforce where they're interacting. So from an experience perspective, on an ongoing basis, measuring which channels are being used, what devices, because that will help cater to the workforce. You're meeting them where they are. So in terms of some quick examples, this is these are some real life examples. This comes from a white paper that we published with ServiceNow, but just a construct. The question came up earlier with respect to using measures to be more prescriptive and enhance the experience. Well, here are some examples. You can see in the top row, using spikes and calls about performance management processing to glean some potential insights. In this case, associates being confused about a new performance management framework. And then the action there has nothing to do with flipping switches in the technology, but making sure that terminology, resources, language related to the new performance management process is available in the portal. And as you can see, there are many different examples, and this really reinforces for me why go live does mean go begin, because once you're live on a platform like this, you can leverage insights as long as you've designed the processes, the workflows in a way that can collect the data to drive these potential insights to then drive the continual improvements, whether it's through net new projects or enhancements, as Greg covered for us earlier. So keep the questions coming. We're in the home stretch here with just a few minutes remaining, but would love any additional questions or comments that folks have. Greg, we've got some key takeaways here as we kind of round out the discussion, but anything that you wanted to open with? I've been yappering here for a while.
No, I think we're good, Mike. I think we're good to kind of close out and get to Q&A.
All right, great. So in terms of the key takeaways here, mindset, remember, first part of our equation, mindset, people, process, technology. Go live means go begin. Product management, really thinking more like a marketing function and operating like one as well. Continuous improvement. There is such a thing in the cloud as incremental and rapid improvements using data collected in the EXP itself, as well as from other systems. And then lastly, skill sets. We understand that experience is new for HR and new for a lot of other corporate experiences, functions, at least in a digital sense. So really focusing on getting the right skill sets in place. We've worked with a number of organizations to set up experience COEs, but in a lot of cases, that's not just setting it up in HR, it's setting it up to really oversee design and delivery for experiences across the workforce, across corporate functions, getting input from those functions. But the center of excellence itself might reside in HR, it might reside in IT, really depends on the organization. But most important thing here, as Greg mentioned earlier when we covered governance, is that cross-functional partnership is key. So with that, would love to see any additional questions or insights that others in the audience have. Really thank you for sharing the ones that you have so far.
Mike and Greg, such fantastic content. Sometimes I wish we started with the takeaways because they're always so good. It seems like that's where the really key information is. Obviously, the power of analytics and data as a result of doing all of the right foundational work is really where the payoff is. Such great Q&A and chat. So thank you everybody for being so interactive, and some of you were really lively on Twitter too. So this was a really fun one. Yes, you'll be getting these slides and the recording directly to your inbox within the next 24 hours. Please contact us. You know where to find us. Mike at Leapgen, Greg at The Anti. We've got lots of resources available to help you, and both of our teams will be at HR Tech, one of our industry's largest conferences. So if you'll be there as well, please find us. Let us know how to connect and find you there. And thanks again for enjoying this great content today. Mike, Greg, thank you. Here's how to join Fuelwork and continue the conversation over there. And we'll see you all on our next webinar.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. Have a great day.